Well, let's switch to another important story today because it's the first day of 2 weeks of protests by the climate activist group Extinction Rebellion. This group started in the UK last year, but now it's very much a global affair. Here in the UK, it has three core demands: that the government declares a climate emergency, that there's a legal commitment to reducing carbon emissions to net zero by 2025, and that a citizens' assembly is created to oversee changes in climate policy. Let me show you some of the pictures that have come in from around the world. We're going to start in Sydney. 30 people were charged there after blocking a main road and staging a sit-in. People were also protesting in Melbourne and in Brisbane. Then these are pictures from Amsterdam. There was a heavy police presence around these protests. Demonstrators put up a tent outside the National Museum, and we understand more than 100 people have been arrested there. Next, this is Paris. Activists have been blocking one bridge and some sections of the city centre. And then this is London. More than 250 people were arrested. As you can see, hundreds of people arrived in Trafalgar Square. They also blocked Lambeth and Westminster bridges. And bear in mind, these protests aren't new for Londoners. There were some earlier in the year that closed down various parts of the city. And during those protests, there were more than 1,000 arrests. Well, here in the UK, the group's been tweeting: urgent call out with police confiscating kitchen equipment and food. Join us as we head towards a chilly evening. And they're asking people to come down and offer them support. Other people are questioning whether these tactics are reasonable to get their points across. There have also been protests in Berlin. One of the busiest junctions was shut down. Here's Jenny Hill.
Normally at this time of day, this is one of Berlin's busiest, if not the busiest junction in the city. Today, you're not going to drive a car through here. Hundreds of climate protesters have set up camp. There are simultaneous protests going on in other parts of the city. And they say here they're going to stay all week. They're going to block this junction all week. They've come prepared. There are sleeping bags, ground mats and so on. And they say they want to stay here because they want to change government policy. They think this is such an important issue that they're prepared, many of them, to be arrested if it comes to that. So a lot of this going on across the city, and we're expecting to see more scenes like this as the week goes on.
Next, we switch to Washington Square Park in New York because Neda Tawfik is there.
All day, it's been a scene of really orderly chaos, I would say. The Extinction Rebellion protesters hitting a lot of the iconic spots of New York City. First at the Charging Bull down by Wall Street. They sprayed it with fake blood and staged a die-in. Around 30 people were arrested between there and the Stock Exchange, where they continued the protests, before they went up to Lower Manhattan and blocked traffic on Broadway Avenue. Again, 50 people there arrested. But police have really been trying to contain the protesters, mark out the route and surround them so it won't get too out of control. And now here they are beginning what is supposed to be a week of activities, trying to get people signed up and aware of their cause.
And what do they want in America to happen?
Well, you know, it's interesting, Roz, because the protesters I spoke to said that they are demanding that action is taken that really fits the crisis we're facing when it comes to climate change. They say even though here in New York City, leaders have declared a climate emergency and have been really keen to move away into renewable energy from fossil fuels and lower CO2 emissions, that they're not acting fast enough. And so what they want to see is leaders listening more to community members about what needs to happen. And all along this protest route, there have been members of this group handing out flyers to the community. And while a few New Yorkers have been annoyed, you know, one woman saying, "What stupidity," others getting annoyed by the traffic being blocked, there have been young kids, others who are really interested in their message to learn more. So they are really being successful in spreading their message through these actions.
I have a feeling we might be turning back to those protests across the next couple of weeks.
But this is essentially about hope. The belief that if enough people show up, they can make this protest as effective as it is inconvenient. Rachel Younger, ITV News, Central London.
And those scenes were mirrored in cities right across the world. At least 30 people were arrested in Sydney as activists there stopped traffic in the business district of the city. In New Zealand, protesters glued and chained themselves to cars and blocked roads outside Parliament. Campaigners also took their march to the Ministry for Business to petition against oil exploration permits. And in Germany, campaigners gathered at the Victory Column monument in Berlin while streets were empty of cars because of a group sit-in to disrupt the traffic.